here I am. And I'm in pants. I haven't been in pants since Easter. But somebody knew that this was going to be tough on me, and he said, everything is going to be all right. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll turn the temperature down just a little bit so while you're wearing pants, you'll feel comfortable. So I'm going to talk about work, okay? What is work? We're talking with Abby. There's all kinds of different work, you know. So, sometimes we're doing work that we don't even know we're doing. And it's all different for everybody. So, how much work should I do? Do I do too much? Do I don't do enough? When am I done working? Okay. Lots of questions about work. And today I'm going to talk in particular about how work defines me or you. But first, before I get into that, I'm going to do an infomercial, so to speak. You know, if you've got streaming TV today, you've got commercials on your TV that are interactive. You know, hit OK, and it'll take you to more information about whatever that commercial is. Well, I'm doing an information commercial here today, and you're all participants. How much work does it take to make a sermon? Okay. How many hours? I want to see a raise of hands here. 1 to 3 hours?
No.
4 to 6?
No.
7 to 9?
No.
10 to 12? Okay, we got 13 to 15. Okay, all right, from experience. 16 to 18. Okay, either everybody here is shy to raise their hand, or they already have a pretty good idea. All right, 19 to 21. Am I getting close? 22 to 24. All right. Okay. Nobody wants to raise their hands. All right. Do you think it's still higher? No. Okay. All right. So, anyways, I went online and I researched it before I started getting ready for this, and I found 4 surveys that were done asking pastors about how long they took to put together a sermon. 70% of the pastors who answered said that they took between 10 and 18 hours per sermon, with the average overall being 13 hours. Now, preparing for that 10, 15, 20-minute sermon that we hear every Sunday is part of the pastor's weekly work. So, 13 hours, that's over a quarter of their work week. So, a lot of effort is put into putting that sermon together. Ladies, okay, you can appreciate this, okay? Think about if you had to put together a family meal at your house every Sunday for the whole family, okay? What am I making? Do I got all the ingredients? What do I make first? What second? All that. I got to prepare the meal. All that. And then everybody shows up and it's consumed. 10, 15 minutes, and it's all over. Okay. Was it all right? Was everything too hot? Too cold? Overcooked? Did everybody get enough? Did it fill their needs? No complaints. Okay. You assume, okay, everything must have been fine. Okay. But where is okay, where is fine, you know. Your meal passes you, and then you got to do it all over again next week. The ladies, they go out in the kitchen, clean up, whatever. The men, they're off to the TV, you know. The meal's all over. Like I said, and then next Sunday, you started all over again. So, with this Labor Day weekend, I'd like for you to think about Pastor, you're celebrating Labor Day weekend, and give him a thought, give him a prayer for the work that he does and the amount of time that he spends right here, standing, doing better than what I'm doing right now. Okay, commercial is over. I said I want to talk about work, okay? But as I said with Abby, there's all kinds of different work. And as you grow older, work has a different relationship with you. When you're young, those things that you do as play and everything, you don't ever think about that as work. So I'm going to tell you a little story about Carla. My Diane's niece. June 1999. Diane's brother and his family were up from Mississippi for a visit. They're staying at her parents' house, and so that every night after work, we'd go there for dinner. And the one night, I don't remember what day of the week it was, but I pull in out of the car, everybody's outside, we're gonna have a picnic. I go over to the cooler, grab a soda, flop down in one of the lawn chairs. Celebrated my 25th anniversary today. Carla, she's a senior in high school, and she goes, 25 years? How old are you? And I said, I'm more than twice as old as you are, and I've worked longer than you've been alive. And guess what? I'm going to work that much time more before I'm done. So, make sure you get a good education, and then you get a job that you really love, because you're going to do it for a long, long time. Well, Carla went on, graduated from nursing school. She spent the next 5 years as a contract nurse, working around the country in different cities, in emergency rooms and trauma centers, because that was going to be her specialty. And she went back home and worked at her hospital and became one of their youngest nursing supervisors. So, relativity. Work means different things, time means different things. It's all relative to us. So, work, okay? Work is an activity, right? So, it's something that we do. It's a job, it's a career, whatever. But it's also it's to engage in work. We build relationships. We work at our marriage. We work at all these different things. So work has a lot of different meanings to us. But the purpose of work really hasn't changed that much over the millennium. A little history going back. I mean, we were all hunter-gatherers at one time. If you didn't work, you didn't eat, you didn't survive. So you had to go out there and you had to provide. Eventually, we became an agrarian society, and people started to become specialists. somebody happened to be good at making arrowheads and started doing that and trading for all the other things he needed. He may not have been good at doing something else anymore. Stuff like that. A long time ago, ladies would spin their own cloth, their own thread, make their own cloth, and all that kind of stuff. Men would be able to make their own horseshoes and whatever for their animals and their instruments, but we became specialists. Slowly but surely, people started specializing and started doing these specific jobs. And they started having a status in society. Industrial age came. We became even more specialized. People started moving away from the home, moving into the city. You know, no more the Waltons. We have 3 generations of people living in the same house. Everything was scattered. Family units became smaller, and it became more and more impossible for you to be able to do everything you could do to survive, to provide for your family. You had to rely on the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, you know, for all those things that you couldn't do anymore. Here's a classic example. And some of you, I may have already told this, or you may already know. The older homes used to have one room in particular that you very rarely ever used. The family used the kitchen, but that other room was pretty much always shut up, except for when there was guests or company or somebody in the family passed away. And that person was laid out in the parlor. With families scattering and whatever, one of the specialties was the undertaker. And the undertaker started having funeral parlors for the viewing of the family members. And now that room of the house no longer was the parlor, but it became the living room that the whole family used. Things changed. Work has become really refined as we become specialists. I mean, there's manual labor, blue collar labor, white collar, professionals, you know. And income has become extremely distinct. You work. Lower class, middle class, working middle class, upper middle class, upper class, rich, the super rich, okay? I actually found online calculators that you put information into it, and it will tell you what class you're in. You know, it's just unbelievable how distinct we have made ourselves as far as our work. It is how we are recognized in society. But this isn't nothing new. Okay, it's always been. I remember much younger when the Sunday newspaper used to have the Sunday magazine. Anybody remembers that? And on the Labor Day weekend, it was devoted to showing you all the people and what their occupation was and how much money they made. And what did you do? You know, go through it. Go, what? I'm not making enough. So yeah, you compare yourselves with what other people are doing. It was status. Okay? It defined who you were. Okay. There's other things. I recall my high school reunions. Okay, high school you had all the cliques and all that kind of stuff. You think after high school that will all go away, but it only gets worse. I remember 5th year reunion. It's all about what school you're going to. 10th year, where were you working? You know. 15, what school district were you in? by the time you got to 45th, it was grandchildren and retirement. Are you retired yet? No. Hope, glad by my 50th, which just happened recently, everybody is just, we're just glad to be able to see you and be able to talk to you. But it's even older than that. I mean, this status thing, Jesus saw it. I mean, there's James and John, okay? Jesus. Which one of us sits in your left hand and which one sits in your right hand? I can literally see Jesus doing a Leroy Jekyll Gibbs, slap in the back of the head. You know, you get it yet. You know, you got to be last to be first. You got to be the slave of all. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. That's today's gospel lesson. He warns us again about determining our own self-worth and what our place is on the ladder. I know you just get the picture, you know. So it's nothing new, and Jesus does what he can to keep us from falling into the trap of self-worth. He walked the walk. He led by example. Last week, our gospel lesson would have been about the lady, the woman who had the unclean spirit, and Jesus cleansed her on the Sabbath. Okay. And he got chided and everything else, and he sucked it all up and took it in, and then he humbled them. Can you imagine Jesus going, oh, it's the Sabbath. Gee, I really would like to do this, but I can't. Let me look here. And oh, could you come back on Tuesday? And no. He did what needed to be done right there, right then, because it was the right thing. And he humbled himself. The heck with the Pharisees and the legates and following along all that. It was what he was supposed to do. We need to remember his example and to do what is right. In whatever our job is, if it's a Christian vocation, to be a shining example of his love and humility. It's hard to do and works best with the little things, like buying a scrub brush, lighting the candles, sharing some time with someone in need of a friend. So this Labor Day, I would like you all to acknowledge all work, not just yours, but everyone's. Think about the guy who collects your trash and your recycling. Catch it at the camp. Thank you. Because every job is important. Be grateful for what you have. And I'd like to start ending with this. This is a poem called, it comes from a poem called The Rose Garden by a Persian poet named Sadiq. It's rephrased a bit over the years, but I'm sure almost everybody knows this. I cried because my shoes were not new, until I saw someone who had no shoes. I cried because I had no shoes, until I saw someone who had no feet. Remember, Jesus loves you for what you are, not who you are. You are a child of God. Make a pledge to do that and make it on your Labor Day resolution. Do your best, all you can. Serve others as you would like like to be served. And strive to be more Christ-like and to pray to him